Trying.
Okay. Susan, are you staying online? Is your number the number we should use for?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Otherwise, are we all set?
Tim's having trouble getting into the meeting.
Okay, I just let him in.
There we go.
I guess we'll have to spend more time on this, Paul.
Yeah, that's fine.
We all set to start? No, there's 10.
You're recording and you're on YouTube.
Oh, okay. So YouTube is on. Good. Thank you. So as chair of the Northwood Select Board, due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, we are authorized to meet electronically. There is no physical location, but the board members can observe and listen contemporaneously. I'm confirming the following. The public has access to the meeting, that's primarily through YouTube. They can also join the meeting if they want to. I recommend using the YouTube. The notice of the meeting was posted on the website, and you can use the link on the website if you want to join the meeting or go to YouTube. The mechanism for alerting us if there's a problem with this access is to call Susan at 607-322-6232. And if the board has trouble with the meeting logistics via Zoom, the meeting will automatically be adjourned. There might not be a vote indicating we are adjourning. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. I'm going to start the meeting with a roll call of the board. Matt.
Present.
Pam.
Present.
And Tim.
Present.
Good to see you. And Hal. Beth had indicated she would not be able to attend this evening, so we're going to move ahead. Let's start with the pledge. If you would please rise and face the nearest flag and pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay, thank you very much. I'm now going to open up the Citizens Forum. I see two people in the meeting, Betsy or Deborah. If either of you would like to speak during Citizens Forum, please signal using the reaction device, please. So like you can, do something like that or, whatever. Okay. I'm just going to pause for a little bit because sometimes people have trouble finding that. Okay, at this point, I'm going to assume that we don't have anything for Citizens Forum, so I'm going to move right into ongoing business. We had some meeting minutes that Susan sent out recently. Do I have do we have any discussion in terms of any edits that we want to consider right away on this? Anybody have any edits that they want to add?
I do.
Matt.
It's just a nitpicky thing, but it's the same concern I had when we were discussing it. If we could just on page 2, line 50, have that reflect that the link was going to be placed on the welfare page and then linked from there.
Okay, yes, I remember that also. Does anybody have an issue with that change? Okay, any other changes? If not, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment that Matt noted.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
And Tim was seconding, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Great, thank you. Now we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Walter or Paul, you want to read it off?
Good evening, it's Walter.
Thank you, Walter.
This week, we have our accounts payable manifest dated December 23rd, 2020, which is batch number 15209 for $54,787.39. We have an accounts payable manifest dated December 30, 2020, batch number 15223 for $118,774.57. We have a payroll manifest dated December 30, 2020, batch number 15225 for $96,910.13. And we have a tax collector's property tax supplemental warrant for 15 Sky Farm Road for $1,572.85. This particular property was repurchased under the repurchase statute in September and was still listed as exempt when the second issue tax bill went out. So the property owner is responsible for the second issue tax bill, and this is a supplemental warrant to collect those second issue taxes on that property.
Okay, thank you, Walter. Again, this is primarily for the public's information in terms of the money we're spending on their behalf. I will note that the accounts payable manifest probably seems a bit high. That includes 75,000 order of magnitude, $1,000 order of magnitude for the ambulance down payment. So that's due, and obviously that means the ambulance is on its way. It also includes $25,000 of, well, so just to clarify, that ambulance payment comes out of the existing fund for that. And then it also includes $25,000 of some tree work that we were fortunate enough to get done this year yet. So those two big things add up to almost $100,000 or a little bit over. And that's why that is so high. Does anybody else on the board have any comments or questions regarding the manifest? Hearing none, then we're going to vote to approve the manifest as read. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Thank you, Pam. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Pam?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. So thank you for that, and thank you for your diligence on reviewing and signing those. Okay, next up is Walter. I know you've got a list of stuff, Walter, so just start working your way down the list. You know, Walter, I'm not hearing you. I think it's because you're on mute.
Everybody in my house could hear me. And I said it so eloquently too, but I will say it again. I'm sorry. Regarding staffing updates, I am extremely excited and pleased to announce that Cheryl Eastman of Pembroke will be assuming the position of Finance Director on January 4th. I'm also soliciting applications now for the Laborer 2 position in the Department of Public Works, and we've started to see a couple of those. Hopefully we'll find someone suitable for that position in the near future. The second issue, property tax payments, Marissa has reported that collections on the second issue bills are at 93.4% collected as of 2020.
Walter, question on that, if I could, please?
Sure.
How does that compare historically? My recollection is that we are typically in the 90s, but are we a little low this year about where we normally are? Any idea on that?
I don't really know. Both, of course, Marissa and I are both new to this year's second issue collection. So, but certainly I think that's a fairly strong collection rate based on the times and the issues with the changes in values and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that can be an update at the next meeting. Then, please, just historically, how does that compare? Just so we get some sense as to whether people are doing okay or not.
Okay. So just to finalize on the FY19 audit, as I mentioned before, the audit is complete, and once I see Hal tomorrow and he signs the letter to the auditors confirming the information that we've delivered is all the information and accurate, then we'll be receiving the FY19 audit most likely sometime the end of next week. So that'll close that particular loop on the FY19 audit. And I'm in discussion right now with the auditors about a schedule for the FY20 audit. I'm hoping once Cheryl gets on board and with Greg's cooperation, we'll be able to begin the FY20 audit in mid-February with the field work and so forth, and hopefully have that completed by July 1st. That's my goal, as long as everybody agrees to that work schedule. Under the topic of records preservations that we've been talking about during the budget process, I did learn that there are 2 volumes of records that require preservation work as soon as possible, just based on their conditions. They are ones that have to be handheld, basically individually, as they're copied and preserved. I provided a copy of a cost proposal that was given to the former tax collector, town clerk, from co-file preservation, which the town has used in the past, and that was in your packet. If you refer to that, you'll see that volumes 18 and 19 are asterisked as being in the worst condition, and as a result of that, have the largest cost for processing, which equates to $7,221 per volume.
Oh.
Beyond that, some of the more better conditioned volumes, which are 22 and 23, are significantly less, 3,047 and 4125 respectively. And then from there, we move into doing our vital records, and those are somewhere in the $3,200 to $3,800 range per record package. And as you can see, there's several of those to be done. So certainly good to find this information and get hopefully on a schedule to get these improvements done. It was obviously in this year's appropriation, there's $3,930 that hasn't been spent. I had suggested that we at least try to complete the first volume with encumbered funds, which would equate to the $7,222. With a subsequent conversation with Hal, he suggested maybe we look to do 2 volumes with the encumbered funds, and then hopefully, if we have an approved budget, we'd have an additional $10,000 available for FY21 to continue the work on the additional 2 volumes that need to be done, and hopefully maybe get started on the vital records the following year. So that's the update on that process right now. And as we talk about the encumbrances, we can talk about this a little further as far as whether
Okay,
we want to do more or less.
okay, we'll hold it till then.
Sure,
Okay,
unless somebody has any questions now. Okay, moving on to the ambulance lease documents. I have all the documents ready for the lease financing for $165,000 for 7 years at a rate of 2.744%. And the board hopefully would authorize me to sign those documents. Originally, the delivery of the ambulance was scheduled for January 5th, but I see that that's been pushed out to January 15th. Is that correct, Chief? Yes, okay, he's shaking his head, yes. So, we still need to get these documents done. There's several documents, so if the board wishes, they could authorize me to sign them on behalf of the town. And we can have those sent off to the lease company so we can have payment ready for delivery of the ambulance on the 15th.
do you want to do that now, Walter, or wait?
I'd like to do that now if we can. There is a motion I proposed in
Go
my
ahead.
report. It's just a move to authorize the town administrator to sign all the documents relative to the lease agreement with Tax Exempt Leasing Corporation for the new ambulance.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Just, Chief, do you know why we're like a week or two out? Is there just a little delay? I guess we can,
Yeah, we ran into some issues. The stretcher is a new mounting system that's safer and whatnot. And when they went to install it, they found that there were some parts missing, so they've had to request those parts from the manufacturer.
okay, so go, good.
Okay, anything else? Okay, hearing none. Tim, how do you vote on authorizing Walter? Yes? Yeah, I'm going to ask everybody to do it verbally because just in case somebody's listening on the phone or something.
Yep.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. So just a quick interruption. Pam, you are coming through much quicker. Did you just come to upgrade or
I
what?
wasn't going to say anything.
My internet's not working right,
You just
and
jinxed
I'm
us,
on
but-
I'm on my expensive data plan.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but it is moving quicker. Thank you. Okay,
This
Walter,
is a $20 meeting.
we'll reimburse you. We should.
Woo.
And I just did want to note that with the lower interest rate that was originally projected when the warrant article was proposed to purchase the ambulance last year, that the annual payment will run about $3,000 less than what it was projected to be. So it's a little over $24,000 a year, and I think it was projected that, $26,000 a year, projected at around $29,000 a year. So some market savings there with the lower interest rate.
Good.
We were conservative on that, so that's good.
Yep. Yeah, no need to be short. So an update on the new DPW pickup that the board approved to purchase at the last meeting. So the 2020 vehicles are no longer available that meet the specifications that we were looking for. So we're actually getting a 2021 for the same base price, which is a great thing. It's gives us another year, obviously, on warranty, as well as a newer model on a trade-in value if that ever comes to that at that point in time. There was a couple of things that came up in discussions with the dealer about some of the accessories, mainly the stainless plow. There's an option to go with a stainless steel V plow, which was not what the original spec called for. It was called for a straight plow. Both Chris and I felt that was a wise move to go with the V plow because of the way this vehicle will be utilized and how it can manage snow plowing. And I see Tim shaking his head because he knows the business. And then there was also a proposal to go to a lighter polycast sander box, which, because this vehicle won't have a sander in it likely all winter because it's going to be utilized for everything, it'll make it much easier to take in and out because of the weight and so forth is much less than the stainless steel one. So there was an increase in the cost of about $2,200 to make those adjustments. The board had previously approved up to $51,000. We would like to see if we can amend that up to $53,000, which will cover the total cost with the changes and the accessories, and also whatever additional lighting that will have to go on the vehicle as well. So I would like the board to consider an amendment and a motion to increase that previously approved amount from $51,000 to $53,000.
Would anybody like to make a motion to increase the funding? Tim?
I'll make the motion to increase the funding to 53,000
I'll
Well-
second.
for the new
Pam?
plow and the polycast sand is the same one we use in our company, and it's got a cover on it, and two people can, one person can really just slide it right out, and stand it right up. So Yeah.
No, it's going to be in and out, then that makes sense.
it's all plastic, hose it down into the ear, and
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, we're voting on increasing the expenditure on the new truck by $2,000 to $53,000 total. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Tim,
yes.
and Hal is yes. Thank you.
Do we authorize Walter to do any paperwork deal signing on that behalf too? Are you all set with that, Walter? Or?
That would probably be a good idea. Just once the paperwork comes in anyway, it's going to need to be executed. So if you could, that would be.
I make a motion for Walter to sign any, future paperwork on the new, highway department truck.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And discussion.
It's good thinking, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise we'd be back next meeting probably. Okay. No further discussion. So let's see. Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Tim?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, Walter, good.
I did want to note that, the vehicle is in transit. It'll be here either between January 6th and January 20th, depending on how long it takes to get across the country, but it is en route and should be in service by the end of the month of January.
Okay,
Wow.
good.
And again, that would be the 2021. Next item I have is the Gary Tasker photos, which was something that Beth had brought forward as a thought. I don't know if you want to just postpone that until Beth is back with us, or if you want to carry that ball.
I think there was a general agreement that this was a good idea. I think with the board members present, we should discuss how they would like to handle this. And when I say that, what I mean is, do we want to assign it to you to work with Beth? Does the board feel they want, do others on the board feel they want to participate? And if so, then, join the club of Beth and Walter, or other suggestions on how we do it. But I think it was more than just putting up the pictures, Walter. I think she also made comments about some, let's just call it a general revitalization of the meeting hall. So it's not just, adding a couple photos. So how does the board feel about how to do that? Anybody object to having Beth and Walter work this out?
No, I'd like to see some folks from the Historical Society brought into that process, both in terms of what we're doing to Town Hall, as well as how to, which images best represent the development of the town or whatever. So
We'll get some input from them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments or any other?
I'd like to, on the board's behalf, or we can thank Gary Tasker for, I see him all the time around town, and, for finding these pictures and, making them available to us, for keeping the historic, things, basically alive,
How about we formalize that with a document? Walter, could you prepare something once we're once we get things in place, I think, maybe even a little to do maybe if we're out of the COVID to celebrate it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I guess along the lines with what Matt said, we might want to also take into consideration that our 250th anniversary is coming up. And so maybe some of the things that we add and stuff can indicate that we're reaching that milestone.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I think there's a general agreement then that Walter will discuss this with Beth. They'll get some input from the Historical Society, and we're going to basically task them with handling this. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, good. I thought that was a great idea. So.
Okay, so moving on the 12:15 consent agenda, there was an adjustment to the AP manifest, and so I'd like to ask the board to amend that approval. The amount should be $525,034.54, but the amount was actually approved was $527,773.34. So if we could have a motion to amend the 12:15 consent agenda AP total from $527,773.34 to $525,034.54. That'll just correct our minutes and reflect the corrected amount.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second. Okay. For discussion, I guess, Walter, what was the delta, or what was the reason for the delta?
Excuse me, it was pointed out to me by the treasurer. I believe it had to do with some miscommunication between Glenn and the treasurer in terms of
on the school amount.
Well, I think it was a wire transfer actually, but I'm
Yeah,
not 100%
okay.
sure.
Yeah, I remember that now. Okay. Any other questions or comments? So it's a reduction, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion? Did I already ask for a motion?
Yep, you have one on the table.
Oh, okay. Yes, I was discussing. Yes, thank you, Matt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Hal is yes.
Okay, so the next item, just for planning purposes, a schedule of holidays for the coming year for 2021. I don't know if everyone got it. I did actually. I was advised that we also needed a transfer station schedule as well as a town office and operations schedule. So I did send one out later on this afternoon, and apologize if you didn't get it in time, but it basically just manages those conflicting holidays with the operations of the transfer station a little separately, especially the ones that are on the other Monday holidays. Everything else would stay the same.
Okay, so you're asking for us to approve both the office and the transfer station schedule?
Yes, because that would be published in the town report. I understand. So.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the operating schedule, or I guess it's actually really the holiday schedule for both the town offices and the transfer station as submitted by Walter?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Pam, are you giving me the hand?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the file to open.
Speak to the hand. Okay. Okay, so we had a second by Tim.
Okay.
Any discussion
So we
on
got
the
transfer station. All right, I see it. And where are we going to put this?
what goes into the town report for next year?
Okay, all right. Does it go?
It'll be put on the
Website?
website, I assume, Walter.
Maybe the newsletter. Oh, that's right.
You'll go in the newsletter. Basically, it'll be the guiding document for during the course of the year when we'll announce, when operations are closed, and when holidays are being observed and so forth. I did want to clarify that this is for all town operations, not just town hall. So these will be honored, obviously non-essential employees who typically get the same, the day off, but, the emergency folks obviously, don't necessarily end up getting the day off, but they do get the holiday as part of their benefits. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, good. Any further discussion on this one? If not, Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Thank you. Walter?
Oh, moving on, so talking about the fire department command vehicle, we had some recent issues with the vehicle that had an impact on operations, and so the chief provided an updated memo on the vehicle that was included in your packet, as well as a cost spreadsheet that had some additional information about the cost involved. And Chief is online and available to answer any questions that might come up about that or regarding his memo.
I guess I'm going to speak up at this point because I've gotten more than a little bit of feedback regarding this. And so this is one of the reasons why I asked Walter to include it on our agenda. But I will leave it up to the other members in terms of how we handle it. We had a lot of comments during our citizens forum about supporting the fire rescue and our police. But in particular, there was comments about, having the services available. And people are asking me how we can have a vehicle that isn't reliable, living up to what we promised we'd give the people. And that is good service, ongoing service, reliable service. And so I said, it's not a decision I make, it's a decision the board makes. So I asked Walter to bring it up. Mark, do you want to speak to that a little bit? I did want to preempt it because like I said, I wanted to explain why it's on the list. But Mark, do you want to go into more detail?
So, the command vehicle is actually, aside from the ambulances, is the busiest vehicle on the fire department, and it's 15 years old. And the problem with it is it looks really good. If you look at it from from a distance, it looks to be in really good shape, and that's a tribute to my predecessors for maintaining the vehicle and keeping it looking good. But underneath, we have some issues, and reliability has become an issue. This past weekend, I was unable to respond to calls because I went out and there's something growing on the battery, and the battery was dead. My own personal car was in the shop, so I was unable to go to a couple calls, and it didn't make a big difference in the outcome of that emergency, but it definitely could have. So one of the things I did is I called the dealership and I asked if they had any 2020 leftovers, and they do, and we can save about $6,000 and buy a 2020 leftover. I think it doesn't exactly meet our specifications, but it's hard to. So the model we were looking at is a Tradesman, and this model is a Warlock. So you can't compare option packages apples to apples, but it's pretty close to what we had spec'd out. Probably the biggest thing that's different on this one is a 3.6 liter V6 instead of the 5.7 V8. my command car in another department was a V6, and it had plenty of power. Obviously we're not going to be using it to do heavy lifting and plowing streets and towing, big trailers on a daily basis. So,
Yeah. Tim, you have a question?
That's big enough to tow like your red trailer you got at the Narrows or the fireboat, the raft, something like that in need case.
it is. It's not something you want to do every day with it, but a
But
one-off.
you could
Yeah.
get to the Gulf and back without, yeah, okay.
Yes. Yep.
No, okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief.
The other thing is, and it doesn't matter a whole lot to me, but the vehicle is gray and not red. But I think we could kind of reverse our color scheme and make gray the main color and put a red reflective stripe on it. And, we'll letter it up, so everyone knows it's a fire department vehicle. I definitely would not advocate to paint it red because that's kind of eats up all our savings. So, any other questions?
I go over again, what was the estimate for the anticipated repairs?
The anticipated repairs for this year is about $5,000. So if we keep it for another year, we're going to put about what the vehicle's worth back into it again. And those are anticipated. So he said the frame is starting to rust, so it doesn't need to be repaired now, but he expects within the year it will need to be addressed. The transmission is slipping. If that fails this year, that's a big expense for a 15-year-old vehicle. There's obviously the maintenance issues that we have with any vehicle. It needs tires this year. It's going to need a complete rear brake job this year, which includes pads, rotors, some brake line work, and calipers. So that's kind of a big expense, but that's that can be expected with a car that's 5 years old. So I think we put $5,000 into this car the past 12 months. We expect to put another $5,000 into it again. And I think at some point we're throwing good money after bad.
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to state my opinion on this. Given the feedback I've gotten, the money's important. And I feel good that maybe we can do this for less money than what we'd spend if we waited till town meeting. But I'd also say, based again on the feedback, there's also, I think, a factor of what I would call opportunity cost or perhaps opportunity lost, where if you don't have the vehicle and we don't have some of the equipment that you need because you had to hop in another vehicle or something like that, you get to the site and your ability to command the situation is compromised. You could easily blow $10,000, $20,000 in injuries, a life maybe, or something like that. That's the kind of feedback I'm getting. So I guess I'll leave it up to the rest of the board members if they want to make a motion to consider a vehicle as the chief proposed, or we move on. Does anybody want to consider a motion?
I'd like to ask the chief a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on this, the 2020 leftover, the V6, I understand the dire need to get this done ASAP. But are you jumping at the V6 when you really need the bigger engine, the bigger model?
I don't think so, and only because of my experience in another fire department. It was a Ford product, but we put the V6 in that, and I couldn't have been happier. It was more economical on gas daily, and it really had all the power I needed to run calls and all that. And even down the road, years down the road, when we convert to a utility truck to carry hose back from a fire or whatever, I think it's going to have plenty of power. It's just, like I said, it's not something you're going to want to be, pushing a lot of snow with every day or towing a big trailer every day.
But it'd be good on our back roads.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
It's still all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive
Okay.
rather.
Four-wheel
Oh,
drive. Good.
Tim, did you have a question?
You're getting it, it comes with a cap, right? Or like something in the back so you keep everything clean and dry in the back, chief?
Yeah, so there's a fiberglass cap on the back that, we can keep everything in a slide-out tray. So we have the command box at the end of the bed, and we slide the tray out. And we can utilize the rest of the bed as well.
Yeah.
So whether that be carrying cases of water in the summertime or, water pumps, sub pumps to pump basements or wherever, we have full access to the bed.
Just something to keep in mind too, like instead of having, like the old style sliding windows, you each side passenger and driver side doors could flip up too.
Mhm.
A lot
That's
of people like
exactly
that.
what we had in Barnstead, was the doors open.
You could reach in and grab your boots out of the back of it. Yep. Instead of crawling
Sure.
in 8 feet. Good.
Yeah.
So Hal, what kind of motion would you like to motion to go ahead with the 2020 V6?
I guess I would say the motion would need to say something to the effect, a motion to purchase the fire command vehicle as proposed by Mark in his email or his letter to us, actually.
So it would be to expend up to $40,000 to purchase a command vehicle out of unexpended funds.
It'll come out of this year's budget. And if you looked at the money, I mean, we were very careful with the budget. Obviously we do have a couple payments coming up that are going to be big. The payroll is big, this last payroll and stuff. But even with that, we definitely have the funds to do this with this year's
So this
money.
is what Matt just said, up to what, $40,000?
Right. Is that right, Chief? I thought it was more than that.
It says 39.4 on the top one.
Yeah, that's what I have as well.
You go 40,000, be good.
Does that include the lights and everything?
Yep,
Yeah.
3,000.
According to this.
Okay.
So a lot of the lights we're taking off the old command car and reutilizing them.
Okay.
And that's, for me, part of the reason. I mean, it's a $6,000 savings over what we were hoping to fund through the warrant. We've got the money at the end of this year. This is a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. Okay. So, Pam, are you interested in making that motion as Matt read? Or do you want to let Matt make the motion in a second?
For this purchase, I would be happy to make the motion. I am unsure of the wording, so Matt would help me. Up to 40,000 of unexpended funds for the purchase of the 2020 Ford
Ram.
V6,
The
Ram.
excuse me, command
15.
vehicle.
I'll second.
And Matt seconded. Thank you. Okay. We had a lot of discussion. Is there any other questions or discussion on this? Tim?
Turnaround time, chief.
We could probably pick the truck up next week. We'd have to wait a little bit on the cap because it's it needs to be painted the matching color, and then having graphics and lights put in. So I'm thinking probably by the end of January we'd have it in service.
It's great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And hopefully we avoid any repairs or emergency repairs on the other one. Walter, do you have a point? Unmute yourself, please, Walter. You're still muted. There.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I just wanted to note for people that obviously don't have this information in front of them that the vehicle itself is $30,000. The suggested retail price is $43,130, so we're getting a $13,130 fleet discount. And then the remaining amount for the accessories, which includes the cap, the graphics, the lights, the slide-out tray, which total, roughly $10,000. So just so people know what we're paying for the vehicle itself.
Correct.
Tim, you had a question or a point you wanted to make?
I don't know if, like, we throw in again in Pam's motion to have Walter do all the signing paperwork and keep the ball rolling like we did on Chris's pickup truck and the ambulance and everything else. So
let's roll that into the motion.
I will amend my motion to include authorization for Walter Johnson to sign necessary paperwork.
I'll
On behalf
amend my
of the
second.
town.
Tim's
Thank
on
you.
fire.
Just want to
Okay.
keep the ball rolling, keep things going. Good.
Yeah, well, without Beth here overshadowing.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Oh,
no, she's not here. You can't talk about her.
I think she will be pleased about the holiday schedule at the transfer station.
Okay, so Tim has a point on this.
Once your car gets stripped out and everything you need out of it, it go on the auction block, or Craig, we put it out to bid, or is that anything? I mean, we might as well get rid of it because it ain't,
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thought was, and Mr. Johnson may have some additional input, would be to, we could, one, try and negotiate a trade-in on the vehicle, or two, we just put it out to bid and see what we get for it.
We'll leave it up to them, but I think that makes sense.
I would go both ways. I would ask for a trade-in value and see if it makes sense. It would obviously reduce our expenditure amount. So if
Yeah.
it's worthwhile, if not, then if we think we can get more on the street, we'll put it on the street.
Okay, I think there's been enough discussion. So we're voting on a $40,000 fire command vehicle to be purchased out of this year's budget. Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim,
yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, thank you. Chief, thanks for your diligence on this. Saving the money is important. I think that's a great thing. I also think the reliability, given, like I say, the feedback is just critical. So thank you for pushing on that.
Thank you very much.
The Uber option really doesn't work in this case.
The what option?
Uber.
There's no taxi service from Epsom to Northwood, so we got.
Okay, I got it now. Okay, Walter, what's next?
Little levity here. Another item was that the chair had mentioned was revisiting a warrant article to repurpose or expand the purpose of the Cable Expendable Trust Fund, similar to the 2020 article that was not approved.
Yeah, so on this, what I wanted to do was just bring this up for a general discussion, let Walter hear it, and then, if necessary, alter or adjust the warrant from last year. But I guess a couple of the things that we want to make sure people are aware of, that at least I'm thinking about, is that this is for communications in general for the town, improving it somehow, some way. So for example, there was discussion earlier on about a sign for out in front of Town Hall. There was talk a few times about a newsletter and things like that. Matt mentioned something about an email blast software. You want to explain that a little bit, Matt?
Yeah, I was talking about something like Constant Contact, which would be a subscription service, which would allow us to maintain multiple email lists. So if people only wanted to email from recreation in the library, they can sign up for recreation in the library. If they want the whole kit and caboodle, they can get inundated with all of it. But it would allow us to maintain those sort of user lists and tailor the messaging. I think we've dealt with this since the Suncook Valley Sun went under, is how to best get the message out to folks. And we're in a digital age. I think amending the use of that trust fund to allow us to use those funds more broadly makes a lot of sense. I just think it's a matter of figuring out how we word it properly.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that's maybe one of the points I was going to ask the board for some feedback on. I know I mentioned the sign out front. Now, that sign could be a fairly significant amount. It could be at least 20, if not 30. I think I think Co-Brown spent closer to 40,000 on it. So I'd like the board's input as to whether we should include stuff like that, or whether that truly should be something where we say that needs to go either through a warrant article or through some sort of approval by the town folk. Not saying that if we were to do that, take that approach, that we couldn't say in the warrant article to be funded out of the funds within the cable. So maybe, in terms of just general authorization for the select board to expend, maybe we should limit it to some type of expenditures, and then others, we leave up to the voters. But I think, we as the board and Walter as the administrator will need some flexibility to act without having to go back to the town every single item. Because like, Matt, what order of magnitude, what's the subscription go for?
I gotta be honest, I have no idea right now. I could look it up pretty quickly, but
Yeah, I mean, my recollection, because we were considering it for another board. Walter, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that, we're looking at the website. The hosting and support for our website is changing next week as of January 1st.
Yeah.
The websites that I've worked with before in different communities have that option built into it, where people can subscribe to, news and notifications by email, and they can also select the ones that they would like to, receive them from. So it's possible we may be getting that in a package in the future as part of the website piece.
Good. Good.
But so maybe there wouldn't be an independent or separate cost for that. It would be blended into what perhaps a new design for the website would be.
Okay. So I guess, what's the board's feeling then in terms of how we best play this?
I'm just of a mind of the world of electronic technology and communication is changing so rapidly that I don't want to jump on something too quickly. And I absolutely would not bring up putting a sign out front at this point in time, knowing what happened when the school proposed putting a sign up at this point in time, pandemic and all that.
Okay.
I think it's a terrible idea at this point in time.
Okay.
So I think maybe this pursues more study and more information. Again, wait for Walter to give us some information on what that new web host will do, what other availabilities, what prices are for this and that. Perhaps even ask the community. There's a lot of people that don't want to have a lot of emails coming in and notifications. So yeah, I think we need a little more research on here before we make any motions to spend anything on at this point.
Well, this isn't a motion to spend any money. This is a motion to change the use of the cable funds that we get in, which currently now just goes into an account that we don't tap for anything right now. So the idea would be to, on a warrant article, change the use of the funds to allow some of this electronic communications that we just discussed. So, but I think the point you made about, we've given Walter some feedback, let's let him digest it and come back to us with a firm recommendation, perhaps maybe next meeting. Or Matt, you have a suggestion?
I want to clarify that we're not really in a rush on this one. We've got some time ahead of town meeting.
Yeah.
So my personal thought on it, Walter, as you're chipping away at it, would be to simply add into the existing definition something about, so creating, maintaining, and upgrading a broadcast system, including video, online streaming, and electronic communications, right? So it takes the existing definition and just expands it a little bit without getting too in the weeds on the specifics.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, that'd be my thought.
I wouldn't build that box too small.
Exactly.
Yeah, I concur.
Okay. Well, sorry, Walter, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, things have changed dramatically in the last 20 years from when this was created. So I think people, again, I don't know if this was discussed at all. Probably not at the deliberative session because it really didn't involve any money. But I didn't know what the reason was that it didn't wasn't successful other than it didn't get 2/3.
We weren't real clear on what types of stuff. I think Matt's right, though. We need to keep the box fairly broad based. But I think the town folk were looking for some specific things that we could list off, for example, that we were going to do in the next year or something. So that can be part of not the warrant, but part of the info.
Yep.
And that's what we're, asking you to sort out and figure out how best to play it.
Okay.
Okay, well, I thought that was a good discussion and appreciate the input. Let's move on to the next item.
Yep, the only other item I had was just a reminder about the upcoming meetings for the board. We did plan to meet next week, January 5th, and then again on the 29th, and then in between, there's the budget hearing on the 13th, which would be via Zoom, and a deliberative session on January 30th. Just a little bit of feedback from my network of colleagues around the state. As people, like us, start planning more definitive plans for these activities. Most people that have facilities available for a deliberative session are having theirs live and in person without any electronic communications. So it would be an in-person option only. And again, similar to ours, the typical turnout for that size event is easily accommodated in a gymnasium. As far as what's going to happen in terms of voting, that's all over the place right now. As we talked about last time, House Bill 1129, I think it is, gives a lot of options, but also really doesn't address 100% of the issues that surround SB2 specifically as well. So more to come on that, but that's the schedule right now for what's proposed for January activities.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're in communications with Keith on this and coordinating with him in terms of what he thinks makes sense, and because he's going to have to actually run the meeting and stuff, so he has to be comfortable with what you're proposing also.
Again, we haven't crossed the T's or dotted the I's yet. We've reserved the facility for the 30th. I've talked to the folks there about how we can accommodate more than likely up to about 60 people with proper social distancing and so forth. So, but haven't locked down any further details with the moderator at this point in time, figuring who knows, what's going to be going on in 30 days either, but certainly we'll do that as we go forward.
Yeah, I just want to, make sure you're sensitive that he has to deal with, what your decisions are in the venue, so.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we had already discussed that part, and it was just a matter of what the world was going to be like at that point in time.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Glad you're on top of that.
That's all I had on my list, which is
Okay. I guess we're now up to the old business, which is folks have had a chance to think about the potential for making any changes to the elderly exemptions on our taxes. Does anyone feel that they want to take any action at this time? Oh,
Sorry.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
They need to be increased. I just can't really come up with the right numbers. I don't want to see people who have been effectively not paying property tax for years based on, the exemption and working on a fixed income, who all of a sudden are going to have to be putting aside thousands of dollars. So I'm just struggling with if anybody shares that thought and has a number, I'd certainly be open to it.
I guess when I thought about this, Matt, my gut reaction was the exemptions were in place for the full 5 years that the previous valuation was done at. The townsfolk were happy with that amount. We now know that over those 5 years, the values have gone up on average a total of 42, 43, some number
I think it was
like that.
42.
Yeah. So my first pass at what to do would be to, across the board, increase them all by 1.4 times. So that we're, in the past, we were at one number. We know the numbers are bigger by essentially 1.4 times than they were before. This at least normalizes it to what they were in the past. So there's some that are, the exemptions right now are order of magnitude, $180,000 or $190,000. So that would add up approximately another $70,000 to that. So that would bring it up to order of magnitude $250,000 for that first tier that was on the list. And, for somebody that's struggling financially and does not have a whole lot of assets, they're not going to find a house that's really, based on what I've seen in the market, that's much cheaper than that. You can't ask them to go find a house that's $100,000. There's not a house at that price range out there. There's just not. The minimum lot is going for $90,000 to $100,000. That's before you even do any improvements. So my feeling is it's got to be in the 250 range.
Can we get some numbers that we can look at?
Yeah, well, I think if you're interested in doing this,
By next meeting, show me what it is.
Okay.
Show me what you're proposing for your 1.4. What does this mean in terms of dollar value? What's the outcome?
That's actually a good
I'm having
point.
trouble in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Walter, is it reasonable to expect you to be able to pull those numbers within a week?
I can try. Yeah.
If
I mean,
not, well, let me ask.
The key thing obviously is, it's easy enough to do the math to calculate what the new limits would be, based on the income and so forth. The thing to look at obviously is what the disbursement's going to be, to the remaining tax base, which is obviously going to have to absorb that impact
Yeah,
by reducing those responsibilities and spreading those out amongst the balance of the property owners.
yeah, well, that's why I like Pam's idea. We just to raise the number without the rest of the info, it's kind of hard to.
I need more data.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly work on those numbers, and I'm pretty sure we can have something together for next meeting.
So even if we could just get it benchmarked at like a 40% increase and maybe a 20% increase, and then we can potentially
Something, yeah.
If we could bound it somehow, yes, that would make it, rather than just some number thrown out there.
Right.
That's a good idea too. So Walter, if we don't get all the information or don't have sufficient information by the 5th, do we still have time to act on it at the next meeting before it goes on a warrant, I guess, or how does this work?
Yes. Yeah.
We have time.
Yep.
Okay. So please try so we have as much time as possible, and then we'll see how we feel at the meeting on the 5th. But let's add that to the agenda. Okay. Okay, that was good. Because I know last time I sprung it on you, wanted you to think about it a little bit, and this really helps us move this along. So that was a good discussion. Thank you. I'm now going to move on to new business, and I added an item which has to do with road improvements And here's the logic behind it. We agreed to have a warrant for $150,000 for road improvements. I'm very nervous about only, quote, only spending $150,000 when we've been spending at least $300,000 for the last, I think it's at least 8, if not 10 years. And I worry that if we start falling behind, it just ends up costing us more money in the long run. So my thinking was that if we had money left over at the end of this year, and that'll have to factor in the encumbrances that we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but if we had money at the end of the year, then I think some of that should go towards a fund for road improvements and reconstruction so that it's available to us if we need it. Now, we've made some plans as to which roads we're going to do next year. And we said we're also going to wait for the highway plan to be redone. And so just as an example, if we find out that, oh, there's a critical road that really we should do next year, it might make sense to have the money available. And if the road plan doesn't say we don't need to do something on a critical basis, we can leave the money in there and it can accumulate and we can continue to add to it. But I just worry that if we don't keep spending a reasonable amount, we will ultimately end up either not catching up in the future. I mean, I guess what I think about is if we tried to catch up that additional $150,000 in 2 years, that's $75,000 a year extra. It's going to be very hard to get past. So I guess what I'm looking for is what's the board's appetite to use remaining fund balance to, and this we'd have to ask via a warrant, to ask the town folks if they would then put that into a reserve fund that then the select board could decide in terms of which roads the town, if the town plan says we need them, should be done. Does anybody else feel that this is a good idea, or should I just stop talking at this point? Matt.
So I actually think you just said at the end of your last statement a piece that's really important to actually getting this passed, which would be that if we're going to create this fund and fund it through unexpended funds, we're going to need to make it really clear that only projects identified in the upcoming road plan will be funded using this money. So again, I think the biggest fear I have in terms of the way it might be viewed by taxpayers is I don't want anything to look or feel or smell like a slush fund. That we shouldn't have anything that looks or feels or smells like a slush fund, right?
Well,
so we just need to make it really clear how we're going to determine where this money is expended, especially if we're going to be named agents to expend. So it needs to be really clear, I think, that it would only be in line with the findings of the road plan.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Tim, how do you feel about this?
Obviously, improving the roads is, a big part of, keeping the town going. But I don't remember, what did the highway committee recommend for this? Do you remember?
They recommended they recommended the 150, which is what we put in the warrant article.
Just for like the first year, because we had everybody's up against the wall for this year, correct?
Right.
So next year we could roll it and make it, maybe keep it the same this year. Maybe next year when things hopefully get back on our feet, we could add more. So was there a recommendation just to hold off like for a year because of all the COVID stuff? I can't remember what the notes said.
They felt this was the amount that the taxpayers would support. That was the reason. And the idea behind this would be to say to the taxpayers, look, through the diligence that we applied going through this year, we've saved enough money. We don't need to ask for more. The tax impact would be zero on this. And if we didn't spend all the money this year, we can make this fund and then it would be available and we wouldn't necessarily have to fall behind. So, I'm looking at it like the budget committee said, well, this is, the 150 is the most the taxpayers will support. I'm looking at a way to put another 150 in the till without having an additional tax impact. So that's the reason why I'm proposing it come out of the remaining fund balance.
Because even John said back a while that, we're into $200,000 to $300,000 range every year. We should be into the $600,000 to $700,000. So.
Yeah, well, that's really part of what's driving this. And, so to take that example, Tim, we've been spending and last year we spent 350. And let's just say we really should be spending 450, just in round numbers. And now, because we didn't spend that 450 this year, we only spent 150. To play catch up, we're going to have to ask for 450 plus the 300 that we didn't spend. Well, now we're up to 750. That isn't going to fly at all. It's just not going to.
I think with the millions of dollars of equipment the town buys every year, every 3 years, the fire trucks, the ambulances, the new town, pickup truck, Glenn's pickup truck coming. Why beat them up on the roads we can't fix? You know what I mean? We're going to spend the money for equipment. We got to spend the money on the roads to have everything, not beaten to death. So.
Yeah. So anyway, like I say, I look at this as a way to do it, and the tax impact would be 0. So it would be a means to do that. And I guess the other thing to say would be, if we have a better idea how to keep up, please speak up. But this is the best I could come up with. Pam, Matt and Tim spoke. Did you want to say anything?
I don't know. I'm just looking at it. You got to change that date on it. December 32nd. We have no money.
The leap year.
I saw that's nothing like pushing the last day of the year back a few days.
Yeah. So
It's supposed to go the other way.
I see what you're saying, Hal. I do. I understand that. I think that the request at 150 that was put in was with respect to COVID and all that's going on. And I think the voters are going to be a little, I concur with what Matt said, to make sure you have clarity that the use and purpose of this expenditure. I think the one thing that helps it is that it's 0 impact on tax bill, as it's already unassigned fund balance. I'm a little wary of it, of adding another warrant article in. I'm just not sure on. I see. You have a good idea.
Well, how about
Will it work?
Yeah. How about we do this? I think we got some good input. Walter, how about you hone and refine the proposed warrant article based on the input, especially what Matt said about referencing the highway plan, and then let's get that out, and we can bring it up for reconsideration on the 5th. And, this way we've had a good discussion. People understand what we're trying to do. And then, maybe over the course of the week, things, your thoughts will gel and you can, say affirmatively one way or the other, how you'd like to play this. And like I say, it's just a thought I had, but I'm worried about it. So.
I just mentioned Hal.
Pardon?
So again, just referring back to the budget, where, because all the work was done out of the capital appropriation for this year's road work, we still have that roughly $150,000, $160,000 sitting in the operating budget. So in essence, what we're doing is we're just pushing that amount forward with this warrant article to next year. So it's not even really having an impact on our fund balance, because we're we're leaving it as unexpended from this fiscal year. And the other thing that I'll mention too is I've done this in 2 other communities and found it in the last community. You know, we had a major culvert failure that came up during one of the heavy rainstorms, and we had this reserve account that had some residual funding. We had been doing it for about 4 years, and so every year there was you know, anywhere between $20,000 and $50,000 left over because bids came in lower than what were anticipated, et cetera. And we actually were able to utilize that for taking and making those repairs, those emergency repairs, and not impacting the operating budget. So it's another safeguard. And as Tim mentioned, it's, you know, roads are not like computers. They're not, you know, $1,500 to replace. You know, everything's, you know, $50,000 or more, and so that has a pretty significant budget impact. And unlike vehicles and so forth, where we have insurance, you know, basically we don't have insurance with our roads to that extent.
Yeah.
So Walter makes a good argument against adding the language that I was talking about. You know, just I'm just trying to figure out where that line falls between.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to be able to actually blend both thoughts into the article too. That, you know, it will be utilized in accordance with the road improvement plan, or you know, for any unanticipated emergencies that
Right.
come up, you know, during the course of the year, perhaps.
We have a road right now that's shut down with Jersey barriers up on by School Street to High Street. So, you know, we just gotta keep looking away from that. You know, that's gotta be fixed at some point, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we've had some good discussion, and Walter, if you could, you know, wordsmith that, add some points and stuff, and then also think about talking points for when we, you know, when we discuss this, what we would add, if it goes through, what we would add to our voter's guide. So that one's on you then, buddy. Okay, next up is, now we're coming up to your encumbrances, Walter. You want to go down through your list of encumbrances?
Sure. So I had provided kind of a letter form that will eventually be finalized and formalized to the auditors in terms of what the board is proposing to encumber for the coming year, or for the existing year. And we're in a lot of things, obviously. You know, we've already determined that the truck was going to be taken from the.
Walter, excuse me, maybe you should shut off your video because you're breaking up on us a little bit.
Or speak closer to the microphone or something. I don't know what, it just sounded like he's.
Crackling.
You're crackling. There.
Is that better?
Keep talking and we'll tell you.
Okay. So I was just saying that, you know, I reached out to all the department heads and got their input as far as the encumbrances that we wanted to present tonight. And as we discussed, we have already committed to the department, highway department truck, the 2021 for $53,000. Land use had a list of expenses that I also provided the board, which I expect that most of them will be satisfied prior to the closeout of the FY20. But for now, we'll leave those in there, and then we'll amend that as those bills come in and get paid. But none of them appear to be long-lasting beyond the end of the close of the fiscal year. We talked briefly already in my report about the restoration of town records, specifically the town clerk's records. This is an area where perhaps amending that to increase it another $7,221 would help us get that much further along into the most critical 2 sets of documents that need to be done. And so those are the proposed encumbrances from the operating budget, which, as I say, right now I had totaled at $69,000. The other 2 items listed below are just continuing appropriations. Again, these are previously approved and typically will not lapse at the end of the year, but it's always good to note that they're still outstanding. And so that the new fire truck, which would be delivered sometime mid-year in 2021. And then, of course, the ambulance, we're just, anticipating that delivery in mid-January. And the remaining commitment for the $24,000 is for the accessories that go above and beyond the ambulance provider's cost that will be necessary to get it on the road. So, so those are the encumbrances that I have available and recommended tonight.
Okay, so Walter, on these encumbrances, let me ask the process here. Do we, by approving the different POs, automatically add it to your list? And then once we get to year end, or a few days or a week or sometime after the new year, do we then actually formally complete the list and sign it, or how's that going to work?
So what we typically do is the process is, these are what's being recommended at this point in time. There would be no additional ones proposed. It requires the board to take action on these prior to the end of the fiscal year, which obviously is this coming Thursday. So what we will do during the process, if some of these expenditures are paid for out of the FY20 funds, as we close out the FY20 books, then we'll amend this to reflect those and basically reduce them until we get to the point where it'll be prepared for submission to the auditors, and then the auditors will come in and encumber that money in our final audit statement.
Okay, so like tonight, we approved a command vehicle for the fire chief. That'll have to be added to the list, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll just automatically happen as a result of the meeting tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so then at this point, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm looking for a motion to approve preserving the two worst volumes, which are 1966 to 74 and 1974 to 1980, for a total of 14,442. Because I'm afraid if we don't get this work done, similar to the roads, we're just going to keep falling behind. If we have a problem next year, we don't get to them. You can see the costs are already double on this relative to others. It's not a good situation to be in. So is anybody willing to make a motion to preserve those two sets of records?
Which ones again? Can you say it again?
I'd like to have a motion to preserve the town records from 1966 to 74, which is volume 18.
Oh, the asterisk.
And 1974 to 1980, which is volume 19. And these are the ones that require the extra special handling and are somewhat much more expensive. And they're just going to get worse with time in terms of how much they cost. So I'm looking for a motion for a total of 14,442. Anybody willing to do that?
So moved.
And do I have a second on that? Tim's willing to second it? Okay, so this is to preserve the worst of our records. Pam, do you have a question?
Under the, on the first page there, dear auditors, the restoration of records, the 3,930 and the 3,291. What you're proposing is in addition to this,
Instead of.
or upping it?
Instead of.
Instead of.
Yes.
Yeah, we're adding about $7,000, correct?
Gotcha.
Yes. Yes.
Give or take.
And I'm really doing it because, yeah, I expect that maybe we would get it done next year. But if we don't, it just keeps getting worse and worse. And the cost could go up even more because they're so fragile and so hard to handle. And I just don't think we should take that risk. We have some money left over. We were diligent, we saved. Let's take advantage of that now and get it done. So that's where I stand on it. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to spend, instead of what's on the original encumbrance list, to spend instead approximately $7,000 more, so a total of $14,442.
442.
So Tim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, thank you on that.
Thanks, Hal, for taking leadership on that. It's possibly one of the least exciting things that we have to worry about right now, but it needs to be done, right? So
Yeah, it's just one of those things. You don't get to it, it never
We
gets
keep pushing it
finished.
back, pushing it back. Like you said.
Yeah. And we're fortunate. Again, we were diligent over the course of the year, and so let's take advantage of that. Okay. Next, Walter, you're going to have to explain the next one on the delegation of deposit authority. And I'm going to suggest you come back with your video, because you were still crackling a little bit, and I at least had a chance to read your lips a little bit.
All right, I'll try to do better. First of all, before we move on, I would like us to amend a total for the encumbrances to include both the motion that was just made plus the addition of the command vehicle, which would basically encumber $116,298.70 from the operating budget.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Can you say that amount again? From the command vehicle was 40, right?
Yep, command
And
vehicle was 40.
And we just did 14,442. So
Yeah, plus the 8856.
Okay, I'm
land
sorry.
use, plus
okay, yeah,
plus the highway truck.
okay,
That was a grand total under the appropriations.
okay.
So it's
So
116, 298, what? I'm sorry.
70,
70.
yes.
I'll second. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Who firsted?
Tim.
Tim? Oh, that's right, yeah. Okay, any further discussion on this? And I guess I would just note that, on all of these, we have deliberated and voted separately on these items. So this, in my mind, is more a formality and notification that we're encumbering these things as opposed to an additional revote on these items. Walter, you wanted to comment?
I just wanted to note that the grand total for both the encumbrances and continuing appropriations is $440,298.70.
Yeah, before people get too excited, especially those listening at home, 324,000 of that is from existing funds and capital reserves. So
Exactly.
it's just basically the 100, round numbers, 120 that's coming out of our operating budget. And again, if you look at our expenditures to date, we're looking pretty good from that perspective. Further discussion on this? Hearing none. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Thank you. Okay, Walter, now you're going to talk about delegation of deposit authority.
Yes, so under New Hampshire law and statute, only designated individuals are allowed to make deposits on behalf of the town funds. And that is a recommendation that's made by the treasurer, because the deposits are being made on behalf of the treasurer, because the treasurer doesn't work every day. And of course, the deposits are made typically frequently during the week. So our town treasurer has recommended that we authorize our town clerk, deputy town clerk, tax collector, to be a authorized depositor of town funds at our designated bank. And it does require approval of the Board of Selectmen of that recommendation.
Okay, so you have a letter in the packet with Sandy's signature on it. What's the board's pleasure on this? Tim, go ahead.
do we add, is there, I mean, I don't, like I said, I'm not too sure, but is Cheryl Eastman, should we add her? Did she do anything to that before Walter's shaking his head, no, I'm just throwing it out there, you tell me.
I thought that was a good idea.
Well, not meaning she can't, but we can't do that, okay? It's up to the
Oh.
treasurer.
Oh.
Okay, so,
Under statute, because the treasurer has the responsibility for deposits, only the treasurer can designate other people to make deposits. She may well do that. I've been designated in the past in other towns and so forth, but that's up to the treasurer.
Okay, so we'll see how Cheryl fits in as to whether or not we get a recommendation or not. Okay, so right now, because Sandy approves, we can only do Marissa right now. So how about a motion to that effect?
Motion to delegate deposit authority to Melissa Rowe.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim?
yes,
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Thanks for the explanation, Walter. I wasn't clear on that. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, now, sale of the old fire rescue truck to the highest bidder. You want to walk us through that, Walter?
Yes, according to the chief, there's only been one bid received. It's been promoted on our town website. And it's, as you can see from his memo, it's his recommendation that the board accept the bid, $5,300 for the vehicle, and we send it down the road.
Okay, so do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? Second, Tim. Discussion.
they come pick it up as is, right?
I'm assuming so, Tim, but I don't know 100% about that question.
And actually, I had a question in his bid. He said something about provided it can be a simple sale. What does that mean? Or no hassle sale or something like that?
Uncomplicated.
Yeah, uncomplicated. Yes, yes. What is that? Yeah. Can we do uncomplicated in the town here? Or?
The way I've always done it is you give me the money, I give you the keys.
That's pretty uncomplicated.
Okay.
Beyond that, I don't
That
know.
sounds like it meets our criteria.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The check clears, you can have the keys, yeah.
Yeah, no, cash or bank check.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
Mark's good, yeah. Yeah.
Mark's
Okay.
giving the thumbs up. Do you have anything to
Okay.
add, Mark? He's on the line, so I didn't know. if he
Becoming an eyesore, get rid of it.
No, I think that's pretty much it. It's uncomplicated. You give us some money, we give you the keys.
Okay, I'm gonna ask an ugly question. Does this have a V8 that we could transfer to the new vehicle we just purchased?
No.
I'm just teasing. Okay, we're up for a vote. We're up for a vote. Tim, how do you vote on this?
Yes,
Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Hal is yes.
Move that truck.
Beautiful. Okay, and one more item under new business, which is the renewal of the economic revitalization zone. We had a meeting with Walter, myself. We tried to include Linda. She had sent out some stuff regarding this. And then I asked that Matt join, since he had some interest in the economic development aspect in the town. So I'm going to ask either Walter or Matt to speak to this, and then we'll decide what we want to do.
I'd be happy to, Hal. So
Thank you.
we met, and you didn't mention James Burdine, our planner. was
Oh,
on the
right.
call.
Yes, yes.
So James and Linda made a recommendation. If you remember back, it was probably about a month ago, we were talking about the economic revitalization zone. We had decided as a board that it made sense to renew it and invested up to some number of dollars that was remaining into economic development line to move that forward. James and Linda took a look at the zone as it exists, how it's been utilized to this point. The short answer to how well it's been utilized is that it really hasn't been by many businesses in town. Some of the issues that we've got are that it doesn't fully line up with the TIF. When we look at the maps between the tax incentive and the economic recovery zones, it would make sense for those to line up. And we're faced with two decisions. One, to either renew it, which requires writing a paragraph explaining why we want to renew the economic revitalization zone, or to let it lapse and really focus on redoing it if we chose to redo it, expand the map to cover the TIF, and really engage some people in that process as the liaison to the defunct Economic Development Committee. I actually view this as a great chance to re-engage that committee in the process of creating the new maps for the ERZ and really make that a sort of a thoughtful process, as opposed to just continuing with the existing ERZ that wasn't being properly utilized, and maybe that's due to any number of reasons. So it's both the recommendation from James and Linda, as well as, I'll speak only for myself, my thought that it makes sense for us to let it lapse at the end of the year here. And then it's rolling application. So it's not like we miss our chance if we don't reapply, right? If we don't extend it right now, we can reapply basically at any time for a new economic revitalization zone. It's slightly more paperwork, but it's still not a heavy lift, according to James, if we chose to do that at some point. It makes sense to me to just let it lapse. We need to discuss it tonight because that's not what we had decided to do earlier as a board.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any questions for Matt regarding that?
So the plan is to, if it lapses, then when you come back in with your renewed application, it would be having that map extended to cover more of, like, say, the Route 4 corridor. Is that what you're talking about?
It would, and I haven't seen the maps myself, but there's a part, and Hal, you may know this, that there's a section of the tax incentive. There's a part of the TIF that's not covered by the ERZ, but that economic revitalization zone as it exists does cover most of the Route 4 corridor. But I'm guessing there's just some gaps here and there that may have existed for whatever reason.
Well, and over time, things have changed a little bit, and I guess to just say I'm in favor of letting it lapse and then redoing it for today, as opposed to 5 years ago. So it reflects really our best thinking at this time. And I guess I would feel a little bit differently if one, as Matt said, it was a lot of work to reinstitute it. It's not. And second, people can still apply once we've done this, and it's good for the whole year. So even if we get it in later in the year, people can still do something with it. So I don't see a whole lot of downside, but I do see some potential for some upside. And then when we do it, then we can communicate it properly. We can, and if we have our communication methods in place and things, this is just another thing that we can publicize and make sure we do it right this time around. So I think, again, for me, it's also, I'm recommending also letting it lapse and then redoing.
Have we already paid? Because didn't we vote on this months ago?
My understanding is that the work that was done on it was covered through Stratford Regional Planning Commission's grant.
Yes,
on economic development.
We voted to spend $604 in the event that if James couldn't cover this under other venues, then we would help with this $604. It turns out we didn't need to do that.
Okay. All right.
So that's what we voted on. We did not vote on the actual to let it drop or to redo it or anything like that. So if we vote to not reauthorize, then the idea would be that we would get this on our list, and this is something we want to focus on in the upcoming year then. Okay, so at this point, I guess, Matt, would you like to make a motion to not reauthorize?
Sure. I move to not reauthorize the economic revitalization zone with the understanding that we will create a new application in the coming year.
Do I have a second on that? Please.
I'll second.
Okay, so now discussion.
Second, as long as as that wording gets in there on that motion, because we don't want it to be not renew, and then the second part with the intention
Okay.
to
Now
renew.
to-
So make sure that it's full, yeah.
You
Yeah, no,
comfortable?
this is a great moment for us to sort of re-energize the Economic Development Committee. That it's on my radar and something that I don't intend to let lapse. Well, we're
Yeah,
going to
I'd
let it
like more
lapse,
information.
but I'm not going to then forget about it.
I'd like more information on it too.
Okay, so we have the motion to not reauthorize at this point and to work on a new one in the upcoming year. Let's see. So, yeah, Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam
Yes,
and Tim
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, good discussion on that.
Mr. Chairman, can I go back to the ambulance we're selling real quick? We
Yes,
just make sure we have a clause that says, as is, no warranties. It doesn't come back and, bite us.
as is where.
Obviously, Walter knows that, but just
Yeah.
make sure we cover ourselves. As is, as sits,
Yeah,
warranty, no warranty and all that stuff. So,
Yes, as is.
as is.
thank
Yep.
you.
Great. Yep. Yep. Okay. At this point, we're up for citizens forum. I see Betsy's still online. Betsy, any comments? Oh, Walter, we forgot one.
we were adding, weren't we, the request by zoning?
Yeah. Yeah. How'd we forget that?
I don't know, and I also had a question on, in my packet, it is for Marissa Russo. It's looking for our signatures, directed to collect property taxes committed to you amounting to, is that
Okay.
something we have to fill in on also?
That was the one on the consent agenda.
Yeah, it's covered.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good. Good. So hold on a second. What was the one we were missing?
It
The-
was.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead. I don't want to burst, go ahead, you say it.
It was a recommendation for an appointment
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Betsy Coburn to the zoning board of adjustment.
Yeah. Do we want to take that up now, or Tim, was there another item that you wanted to bring up?
Well, when I went in to pay my taxes the other day, and I think she sent an email out to all of us, Marissa explained it, and as if she has a lot of paperwork at the end of the year. You sent out an email asking what was her drive for moving the tax bills back. She says, July and December. She maybe was thinking June and November because there's so much paperwork and letters and stuff she's got to get done by the end of the year. If she pushed it back until November, jumped ahead a month. That was her. She explained it to me the day I was there paying the taxes. So I don't know if you want to discuss any of that, or
I think
she
that's,
sent it an email and you asked her, what point. But that's basically just to kind of free her up towards the end of the year so she can get a lot of her stuff done. So it's up.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Could we ask her to come to a meeting?
I think that would
Okay.
make sense. And then Walter, you had talked, and maybe it was just between you and me, you had given me or her an outline of sort of the parameters on the dates.
Right.
So Tim, I think it's a good point. Let's add that for discussion on the 5th. Because
She asked me if that's our decision, or I said, well, she runs her own little world downstairs. I don't know if that's her decision. So I didn't know, being new. So I said, I'll at least bring it up and we'll see who we authorize you authorize us. So
Yeah, well, there's some constraining factors in terms of, like, when does the county get done? When does the school get done? That sort of limit us, but we could certainly have a discussion on, for example, Tim, how to make it streamlined enough and easy enough so that when those fall in place, we know we're absolutely ready. And so we can get it, quote, as early as we can. But then there's also the consideration that, you start squeezing the number closer in terms of how many months are between your tax bills. That's I don't want to say that's like the third rail of politics, but we got to be careful on that. People, have a budget, and we got to be careful about constraining them too much in terms of how much time they have between bills. So,
She was saying, July and December, June and November, just move everything
yeah,
back.
yeah. So let's have the discussion. Let's have the discussion. And Walter, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, well, there's really not much to discuss. The fact that that's the typical schedule, okay, is to try to get the tax bills out in no later than the end of May, and you have to give 30 days, so they're due no later than July 1st. In the spring, we have to make sure that we're picking up all the pickups, which includes things that were improvements that were made during the course of the year, and we look at property as of April 1st every tax year. So we have to make sure that the assessors have enough time after April 1st and before we issue the first tax bill to get that data incorporated into the valuation so that we're spreading the impact for somebody that may have built a house, added on, did improvements, et cetera, spread it over 2 bills so they don't get whacked all in the fall bill. So hopefully, if things go well and we get things in sync with the assessors, that we're able to get that work done, mostly during the month of April, so that we can be prepared to generate the tax warrant in early May and give people, a tax bill no later than the end of May, and we have to give them 30 days to pay. So, we certainly can shoot for that June schedule with the assessors. In the fall, obviously, as Hal mentioned, the MS1 is due September 1st, which is our new valuations. We have all our paperwork in, but we have to rely on the county and the school district to get their papers in before we can get an appointment with the Department of Revenue to set the tax rate. So unfortunately, that isn't totally in our control. And so we have to wait until all the pieces of the puzzle are in place before we can create the warrant and issue the tax bills. So ideally, this year, because of the reval, our figures went in late, so we were part of the problems, but we still had to wait for the school to get their numbers in before we could get a tax rate, from what I understand. So we can do our part, but we can't control the entire piece to the puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that I mentioned that happened this year, we had a new village district coming into the process. And, to be blunt, that is one heck of a convoluted process. And you just don't learn it, by trying it. You gotta really dig into it. And, I think things will be a little bit better this year now, having, the new folks have gone through the process. So that was the other thing that we did struggle a bit with. But even with that, we were still waiting on the other folks. It was close to a tie, but I think, as Walter said, we can be pretty well prepared on our end. But
ideally, we'd want to get the tax rate set in mid to late October and get the bills out November 1st, and
right.
then due December 1st. That's the typical schedule that you'd like to work towards, but as I say, we just don't have total control.
Yeah. Okay, so do we need to bring Marissa back in, or do we just want to give her that feedback?
I was just gonna say, if Walter explained what he just said to us, to her, maybe through an email or take a walk downstairs someday, and that's good enough for me,
Okay.
I did give that response to Hal and copied her on that, and she acknowledged
Okay.
that too.
Yeah, but I think it's a good point, Tim. We need to maintain the relationships with the other elected officials, or in this case, she's appointed, but, she's our equivalent, and, you just don't blow off a communication to somebody, so it's good you brought it up.
Good.
Okay, so
Now,
Walter,
Walter.
there's one more than the appointment recommended by the zoning board. Does Pam want to speak to that?
I'll be happy to speak to it. I know, Walter, you have a letter from the zoning board from Linda Smith on their behalf. I abstained over there so that I could vote over here. Betsy Coburn has stepped forward to join the zoning board of adjustment as a full board member. Betsy would make the 5th board member. We still are looking for 3 alternates. And this would be for a 3-year term. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Betsy Coburn to the zoning board of adjustment for a 3-year term.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. So congratulations, Betsy. I guess that's the end of the public agenda. Walter, do we have, yes, we have a non-public that we need to talk about. We need to go into non-public, so can I have a
Any
motion?
citizen forum?
Say that again, please, Pam.
Citizen forum?
I had already asked, and Betsy didn't raise her hand, so I'm assuming nobody
Okay.
else.
She texted me. She has nothing because she's on a different computer tonight. She has no video or voice, but she texted me. She says, no, she's all set.
Okay, good. Okay, so then I'm looking for a motion to go into non-public for reputation.
And also under RSA 91A:32A and C.
A and C, so personnel/discipline and reputation.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second by Tim. Okay, so here's the logistics. If we vote on this to go into non-public, in the affirmative, we're going to take a 3-minute bio break.
Are we coming back out for anything?
Walter, do you think we need to come back and vote on anything once we come out?
So Susan switching over powers to Matt.
Yep. We should be all set.
Yes, you are gonna vote on something, or no?
You can just switch it over to Matt.
No, we're not
and
coming back, Susan.
We're not coming back, so switch it over to Matt,
Okay.
please. And
Shut
then,
Well,
everything down first, please.
I'll wait for you guys to, did you vote and everything? You,
no,
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
we did not. So Tim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And that was with the 3-minute amendment, right?
Yeah. The 3 minutes starts as soon as Matt gets control. So Susan, if you could pass the control over